This morning this LED bulb burnt out, and I'm going to try and convert this into a miniature planter. To start, I'm going to take the hacksaw and saw it right at the edge between the bulbous part and the lower portion. Be easy with the saw because, as you can see, if the saw slips it will leave the lower portion scuffed up and won't look as pretty. So it turned out it was much easier when I hold this portion and saw. And since the bulb isn't steady like that, but it's being held this way, I have to have the saw at a slight angle to stay along with the edge between the bulbous part and the lower portion. Here we have the bulbous part. You can use this as a planter on its own, like a little miniature one. You can clean up the edge. You use a heat gun or press it against a hot surface to smooth it out after you've sanded it a little bit. And you could put a little ring for a base, and this could sit nice and steady. Now, if this were clear, you would have the world's smallest fishbowl. Then here, looking at the inside, we have all the circuitry. I was thinking of mounting this on a light socket and then having the ball sit inside, but to do that I have to remove the innards. So let's go ahead and see if we can get the innards removed. Okay, the first portion is to remove these two screws. I was able to remove this screw easily. That one stripped. Now this was, I should have looked harder for a much smaller screwdriver, but this one seemed to work on that one, so I was fine with it, but then it stripped that one. So it's sometimes good to find the right size Phillips head for these Phillips head screws. Okay, if you notice, I did start to loosen this. You can see it's off there a little bit, and I did use that same screwdriver over there. But the secret to actually getting that was I held this against my belly and I pushed down with a screw head right on the head. And by increasing the friction on the head, it's forcing it to turn versus stripping the head even further. So that is a little secret that you guys could use to employ in screw heads. And it also works for tight jars, believe it or not, if you push down on the lid when you turn. Once I got both screws off, I stuck the screwdriver as a wedge in there and popped this piece out. This is like a little circuit board with all the LEDs. So now we need to see if I may have to take some pliers and twist around and see if I can remove that. I may have to drill it out, but if I get that recessed enough, I can use this as a base. Clean up the edge and use that as a base, put it in a socket, probably even paint all this ugly writing on there. So anyway, let's see if I can work on the innards a little bit. Believe it or not, it was a lot easier than I thought. I simply took the screwdriver, held it in here, and wedged it up. So now I can play around with this and break it off, and I should be in business. I pried the little transformer, but I still have that, so I will have to take needle nose pliers for this long piece here and pry that off. Okay, so all you have to do is take the pliers on there, hold the other end, and twist, and it should pop right off. I got it to pop off, and the nice thing is the edge of the plier actually broke these pieces off, which I wanted out anyway. So now we have a nice little base that can sit on, and now we can work on a light bulb planter. Now what I'm going to do is sand the edge so I can get it smooth and flat, especially this side. You can see where there's a little bit of the bulbous part there with when I sawed it, so I'm going to just sand this and make them both smooth. So I got this pretty smooth. This area is a little dipped, so that's going to be a little trickier to get done right, but sometimes the edges can be tweaked a little with like a sanding drum, like a small one on a Dremel or something. Now this one right here, there's not as big of a lip as here. I can keep sanding, so then this lip that can come off, or I can take a sanding drum and just smooth the interior, and then that should be a lot better. So I ended up just using the sander to sand it smooth as opposed to using a drum sander, so I used just a normal one, and it gave you or it gives a cleaner job too. It's a little rough because I try to run it down the edge just to save a little time, but if you keep just going flat on it, eventually it will be nice and smooth. And then I also got this fairly smooth, as you can see right there. And what I want to do is try and see if acetone will remove this. So I'm going to put acetone on a paper towel and wipe this off. It may remove the shine that's on here, so I might just let it remove all the shine and give it a satin finish. And if I don't like that, then I'll just cover this and spray paint this any color I want. So the acetone removed part of the text and made it a little lighter in color. Let me tell you, while I was holding this onto the sander, I ended up chafing the skin. And with a piece of Band-Aid on here and acetone soaking on it, let me tell you, that is extreme pain. It had the wattage equivalency on here, and if you notice, I put some acetone, it took it right out a lot easier, but it also removed the sheen, so the bottom part isn't as shiny as the rest of the top. So I'm not going to wipe the whole thing and clean it with acetone because it removed the sheen, whereas with this, most of the sheen is still on there, and the text is a lot less. So I think I might just leave the text so people know it's a light bulb and go with that, as opposed to covering this portion and spray painting. I'm going to put glue along the rim and then prop it up there as level as I can and let it dry for a few minutes, and then we'll get to planting something. Now I just let this sit. This is a little heavier compared to the bottom, so the weight will help the glue clamp. So we'll give this time to dry, and then we'll go ahead and finish with the planter and see what we can grow inside. So when I had this upside down, it started to dribble down the side. I had to wipe it off, and I went ahead and put it in a base, but this lamp base, you can see the screws stick up so it won't stand straight. However, I'm not going to remove the screws because I do want a different base, but this is what I had that I'm going to use for the time being until I can get a different base with a smaller footprint. I went ahead and filled some peat moss with a little bit of sand as the planting media. And one thing I want to note is, as you can see over here, there are little gaps, and this type of glue started foaming. It's designed that way to fill in, and that's one reason why I dribbled. I put too much, but I wanted to make sure it sticks. So one thing I plan to do sometime in the future is take some white silicone caulk and just seal this, then it will be nice and seamless and look a lot prettier. But since I don't have, at least I don't think I have any caulk, and I'm not going to go ahead and look for any, this will do for now. But once those screws are, once I put another base and I don't have screws like that sticking out to worry about, this will be a little bit more level. And let's go ahead now and plant something in here. Here I have a little runner from a begonia, and I made another video earlier where you can see the mother plant where I cut this off of. And I had this sitting in a little bit of peat with water. You can see a little bit more of runners. So anyway, I'm going to get this in here, and with the peat moss it should stay moist to help this survive, and hopefully this will grow and form a nice full-grown begonia plant, because I really like this type of begonia. I think the lady at the nursery called it a button begonia, but I really could not find any information on button begonias online, so different people have different generic names for plants, and also, like, sometimes nurseries may mislabel plants. But anyway, and who knows, maybe I've even mislabeled some plants in my videos, but needless to say, this, hopefully, if it survives, will look nice once it grows, and the leaves will be about that big, so going up there will be nice. So let me go ahead and stick it in there and see how that turns out. Okay, so I planted it in here, and then in that container where I saved a couple fragments, you can see a smaller one with actual fresh root growth. So this one, I'm going to plant it in there as well, and then make sure this is well watered so it doesn't dry out, and wait for it to establish. Okay, the bird in the backyard was being way too loud. Anyway, I put the small piece over here, and I watered this thoroughly, And these should hopefully grow and expand and the leaves get about that big. And this will make a nice begonia planter. Once I replace the bulb and caulk that, it will be beautiful. Not that it's not beautiful now, I mean I made it, but anyway. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Please.